In the wake of the racial turmoil in Ferguson, Missouri, it's clear to us here, and I think to many of you in the audience, that the criminal justice system is inherently unjust when it comes to race. People of different races get treated very differently by the criminal justice system, and it seems like for the American people that is becoming more clear as well. We've got some polls that were done by the Public Religion Research Institute. Let's bring up this first chart, and it breaks down amongst racial and age and political demographic slices. The blue line is 2013, and then a year later you have the green line. That's the percent who disagree that blacks and other minorities receive equal treatment as whites do in the criminal justice system. And you'll see there that every single bar from 2013 to 2014 has gone up for each group. Obviously, no surprise that black Americans well recognize the mistreatment that they get at the hands of the criminal justice system. But Democrats overall, young adults, that number shot up for young adults in just 1 year. And look, when you go down to the side, the seniors and the Republicans, probably a good amount of overlap there. Look, Republicans in general still overwhelmingly think that it is just the way it is, but even they can't deny what they've seen, and 10-point movement in just a year.
Well, I mean, if you look at cases where, stand your ground cases, for instance, where the shooting was ruled a justifiable homicide, right? Mm-hmm. It's really interesting to see that whenever the stand your ground case involves a white person shooting a black victim, it's considered justified. But if the races are switched, it's not considered justified in the majority of cases. I wish I had the exact numbers for you, but that's something that we did report on after the Zimmerman case came about. But also, if you look at other very specific cases, if you look at drug use, let's look at marijuana. Marijuana use among white individuals and black individuals is comparable, right? But if you look at the prosecution and incarceration among black individuals versus white individuals, blacks are prosecuted and convicted disproportionately compared to white individuals. So why is that? There seems to be a double standard in our justice system when it comes to race and also socioeconomic status.
Definitely.
So if you don't have certain resources in order to fight against whatever your charges are, then you're more likely to be convicted of those charges. You maybe don't have the best lawyer, whatever it is. You're going to be incarcerated. You're going to be convicted. And I think that's the biggest issue here. Yes, race plays a role, but I think socioeconomic status plays an even bigger role.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up. We don't have a graphic for this, but they do also break down that in terms of what people think about the criminal justice system, the poorer you are, the more likely you are to recognize the unjust nature of it. Those who are better educated and make a little bit more money generally think that things are slightly rosy by comparison, which is disappointing considering they are better educated, they should know better. So I wanted to start off the story with that good news. We don't often get to cover a lot of good news, but Americans are starting to open their eyes to the inherent racism in the criminal justice system, but not everybody is, and I want to give a little bit more information about the Republicans that were polled and the Tea Party members. So 57% of Republicans and 58% of Tea Party members said they believe the criminal justice system does not discriminate on the basis of race, which is one thing. But wait until you get a load of this. 61% of Republicans and 73% of Tea Party members said discrimination against whites is as big a problem as discrimination against blacks. What country are you living in, man?
So do they specify why they believe that?
I think that they think that Barack Obama by day is the president, but by night he puts on a bat suit and goes around unjustly imprisoning whites around the country. I don't know what the basis for that is.
Can I tell you?
Yes.
So first of all, it's the first numbers were a testament to the internet, social media, information spreading to more people. Because as I go back to this poll all the time, people don't know other folks outside of their own racial group, right? And in general, especially if it's a minority group, you see even less of them. Black folks, Latinos have to know white people because white folks are everywhere. Now, white folks don't necessarily have to know them because they can brush them aside, and there's also make sure they stay out of this neighborhood. What are you doing here, guy? That type of stuff happens, which we see the police enforce. Anyway, so because of that, you can have these misconceptions about a whole group of people, and then say you're on a jury, say you're an attorney, you have these judgments, you're a judge. You judge against folks that you don't know because you only go off of what you've seen and heard. So these things are starting to get broken down because we're seeing and hearing from actual people. Now, when you have these groups like, there's a hashtag on Twitter, it's Black Twitter, and people just talk. And you see these stories come out, you see the outrage that happens when these murders go down, and people have to see it and experience it, and they get mad sometimes. So this other part of it, of them saying we're just as mistreated as everyone else, that's just them fighting back, because they're still seeing the truth too, and you don't really know how to accept it. That's just their mentality, not knowing how to accept the truth, and other people having to accept it and go, oh shit, I didn't know that. It's just all about knowledge and whether you want to reject it or not. We do this with every political story.
Yeah.
This same group, those Tea Party groups and those certain older Republicans just reject the truth that's right in their face. And other groups have to accept it, and maybe they'll finally die off.
I think you bring up a really good point about, you know, the different bubbles that we live in, right? Because, you know, I remember reading this really fascinating piece about how tolerance toward the gay community has actually accelerated compared to tolerance, I'm sorry, improvements in race relations. And one of the reasons why is because when it comes to sexual orientation, it is not related to your race, it's not related to your background. Anyone in your family, anyone in your group of friends could be gay. So you're kind of confronted with it. So let's say if you were against gay individuals, right? All of a sudden someone you know is gay, and then you're kind of forced to understand it and at some point accept it, because you're not going to go around hating people that you've loved.
Yeah.
You know,
you can't just avoid one part of town.
You can't, exactly. So with race relations, yeah, you can absolutely, without question, kind of keep yourself in a little bubble and then fail to understand the perspectives of other people.
Yeah.
And I think with social media and with stories like Ferguson, all of a sudden, regardless of which bubble you live in, regardless of which neighborhood you're from, you're kind of confronted with some facts that might make you think. And I think that if ever there was a silver lining to some of these news stories popping up, this would be it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think younger generations are starting to understand the perspectives of minorities, and that's a good feeling. And you could obviously see that reflected in the graph.